A few days ago, Japanese voters went to the polls to vote in the 2021 House of Representatives election. Since I made a preview of this general election before it took place, it's only fitting that I make a follow-up now that the results are all in. Now, this is going to be a shorter video than the previous one. I don't really have much of a script, and I'd like to save a more in-depth analysis for a later date. Preferably when there's, more data and demographic information available. Now, on the screen, I have the results of the election, with data courtesy of the NHK. The most notable things here are that the Liberal Democrat Party, the LDP, dropped but kept a healthy majority in the representatives. They went from 276 to 261 seats. Their junior coalition members, Komeito, actually gained a handful of seats, going from 29 to 32, and giving the government 291 seats in total. The Constitutional Democratic Party, or CDP, on the other hand, which is the main opposition party, actually dropped seats as well, going from 110 to 96. And the Communist Party, which had joined them in an electoral pact, declined from 12 to 10 seats. Of all the parties that were part of this opposition electoral pact, only the relatively smaller DPFP and Reiwa Shinsengumi had good nights, ending with 11 and 3 seats respectively. The biggest winner in terms of seats gained, however, was the Osaka-based right-wing party, Ishin no Kai, which nearly quadrupled their seat total, ending up with 41 seats and becoming the third largest party in the House of Representatives. So what does all of this mean? Well, the immediate ramifications are pretty clear. Prime Minister Kishida comes out of this election looking good. While the LDP did technically lose ground, their losses were fairly minimal given all the challenges the government has had to deal with due to the COVID-19 crisis and the leadership changes. If the LDP had done badly, Kishida may have ended up as another one-year prime minister, like his predecessor Suga Yoshihide, but now that fate seems unlikely. It's a good example of really just managing expectations. A lot of people predicted the LDP to do worse, and then delivering a result which is better than those expectations. That the CDP actually lost ground makes things all the better for the LDP, of course, and for Prime Minister Kishida. It also begs the question, how was the main opposition party in Japan unable to capitalize on the ruling party's troubles? After all, the LDP did lose seats, so you would expect that the opposition would pick them up. It seems that the CDP is fundamentally just not able to offer a convincing case for themselves to the Japanese voters. The LDP is very good at triangulating on policy positions that are broadly seen as the norm, while the CDP continues to struggle to offer alternatives to them. The leader of the CDP, Adano Yukio, has actually resigned, so the task of defining exactly who the CDP are and what they stand for will be left to a successor. It's also pretty clear that the pact with the communists was probably not a great idea. Rengo, which is the main organization of labor unions in Japan, does not like the communists and oppose that electoral pact, and Rengo is traditionally one of the most important bases of support for the Democratic Party and then the CDP. So that was probably not a good idea. Now, Ishin no Kai clearly strengthened their position in the Diet thanks to very effective campaigning and popular candidates. Now, so far they do remain essentially an Osaka operation, though they did manage to win seats outside of Osaka. They entirely evicted the LDP from Osaka. They did no more LDP representatives from the single-member districts in Osaka. There are a couple Komeito, but they don't have that much sway outside of the prefecture. Whether they can spread their brand of conservatism, which is one based more on the ideas of small government neoliberalism than on the big government sort of statist conservatism of the LDP, to the rest of the country remains to be seen. So in summary, the LDP under Kishida will continue on as the dominant party in Japan, so one can expect little change from the policies of Suga and Abe. This election does have some interesting implications for party politics in Japan, which I will be exploring in a future video, one which will contain a more detailed analysis of the election. Until then, thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this content.